Hello and welcome to the first episode of the AfterBurners podcast. I am your host, Sam Honey, and with me virtually is Wes Spearman. Today, we'll be discussing the car launches of the team so far in F1. Wes, how are you today?
I'm very well, thanks, Sam. How are you?
I'm very well. And so Formula One is just around the corner, the month of March, the month of racing. Shall we discuss the team launches so far? So far, we have 6 teams in McLaren, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, Red Bull, Mercedes, and if I haven't forgotten, where's
Alpine,
that's
a bit
it,
later on.
a bit later on. So, starting with McLaren, what is your take so far? Having seen the car, what's your opinion?
Um, I haven't seen the car. I actually watched the car launch live whenever it was, feel like ages ago now. Um, but first thoughts are that I think it looks pretty good. It is quite similar to last year, but I think from what we've seen so far from all the teams, from the five that have launched so far, is that they're all playing it quite safe, quite similar to last year. I think maybe next year when we see the regulation change, then maybe they'll they'll spice things up with the liveries a bit. But yeah, I quite like it. I mean, papaya orange and blue, you can't go too far wrong with that from what we're seeing from McLaren. Um, I think they've done a really good job. It does look a little bit bare on the engine cover, sponsorship wise, but maybe that's because McLaren don't have as many sponsors as the other teams. I don't know. Um, yeah, the car it looks thick. It just looks. I don't know. I just really like it. But then I am a bit of a McLaren fan. But what about you?
Yeah, I think it's great, honestly. When I was watching the launch for the first time, I was thinking, wow, this is really something. I mean, it's similar from last year's one, and I don't know, as you know, that the 2021, because it was stopped due to the pandemic, it's carried on to the next year into the new season. So I think it's great, and Daniel Ricciardo as Lando Norris's new teammate, I think is a great move for him. Um, Personally, I think this season, if there's one thing that I'd want to see from the McLaren team, is to try and push to finish in the podium places. Would you say that's a bit far, or would you
Hmm.
say that that's a right target?
I'd say it's definitely a target that McLaren will be looking for. I mean, did Carlos Sainz get a podium? No, Lando Norris got a podium last year, didn't he? The first race,
Yeah,
the Austrian Grand Prix,
yeah,
was a bit topsy turvy in terms of the actual
and he
race.
also got the fastest lap.
He did, yeah. And yeah, Lando Norris was just on fire in those in those first two Grand Prix, wasn't he? I think McLaren they'll definitely be pushing for the podiums. I mean, excuse me, Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris. I mean, first of all, what a fun pair of drivers there. Both just completely bonkers and mad. And I'm sure some of McLaren's engineers will be going out of the way to try and calm them down when it gets to the race. Just like, oh no, these two are coming up with mischief again. Um, yeah, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is that McLaren switched back to Mercedes engines for the first time since was it 2014, 2015?
Yeah,
2015
2014.
yeah, 2015 they switched to Honda engines, and then
Yeah.
he had quite a bad run of form then. But yeah, the last few years with Renault engines, they've been on the up, I suppose. And I think with Mercedes engines, Mercedes got the best power unit on the grid. I don't
Definitely,
think
yeah.
too many people argue with that. But yeah, I think McLaren with the Mercedes engines, hopefully they can go back to probably about this time 10 years ago when the Hamilton Button partnership and how successful that was, winning
Yeah.
races, regular podiums. Hopefully we can see some sort of return to that form this year.
And I would like to see Lando Norris particularly try and push for the podium because he's a great driver, but I think um from a British point of view, I would like to see everyone back him as well. And if he gets like what 1 or 2 podiums this season, it could really look good for him and the team as well.
Yeah, I mean, British driver, British car. Um, it's just. I mean, I've been a McLaren fan for however many years. I was a Jenson Button fan, and then when he left, I thought, well, I might as well just support McLaren as the team. Um, yeah, Lando Norris is, I think, one of the younger drivers on the grid. Um, yeah, I just really want him to put in a similar performance as he did in the first two races, the Austrian Grand Prix and the Styrian Grand Prix. If he can do that a few times over the year, get, as you say, one, two, maybe three podiums, then I think that's something that McLaren would. I think that's what McLaren are aiming for. Just a few podiums, because they haven't had too many. Obviously Norris at the start of last year, and then Carlos Sainz in Brazil
Yep.
in 2019 when he got on the podium essentially after the race, after everyone had packed gone home pretty much after the penalties had been applied. Yeah, I'd love to see Ricardo on the podium. I've got, was it 2 podiums last year with Renault?
Yep.
I don't think Zach Brown will be getting a tattoo of Ricardo on the podium like Cyril Abiteboul. Um, yeah, imagine if both got on the podium. That would
I mean,
just spraying champagne at each other,
I
doing
mean,
chewies.
sorry.
No, go on.
I mean, speaking of Daniel Ricciardo, just to pick out like the big points about his season last year. I mean, he finished 5th in the championship with Renault with more than 100 points, 119 to be precise, and his best race finish was third at the Eiffel GP, and also finishing third in the Emilia Romagna. What do you say about that?
Podium where there were a few retirees. Um, but he's just a sensational driver. And I can't wait to see him in 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 McLaren, in a bright orange McLaren car when it comes to, was it at the end of the month in Bahrain under the light.
Yeah,
And it's just going to be fantastic to watch, and hopefully he can get a few more podiums this year.
yeah, yeah. So that's McLaren, and hopefully they will do something this year. Shall we move on to AlphaTauri? And
Yeah, let's move on.
now AlphaTauri, uh, as you know, they have a new young driver in Japanese man, Yuki. If I get this right, Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
that's
if you
pretty good.
pronounce the T.
Oh, I reckon that's right.
Yeah.
Sounds
So
good to me.
he'll be making his debut this year in F1. So, well, new driver, new team. If that was you, what would you be feeling?
I think the thing with Sonoda is he's so young. I think he's the first driver from the 2000s to race in Formula One,
Hmm.
and he's just flown up the ranks from F4, F3, F2, and now in F1. Um, I think I don't think AlphaTauri will be putting too much on him this year because he is so young and it is his first year in Formula One, and he
He's
doesn't have
20 years
much.
old.
Yeah, he's very, very young, and I believe the first Japanese driver since Kamui Kobayashi
Yep, that's
in
correct.
2014.
Yep.
It will just be interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, Pierre Gasly for me, he was the driver of the season last year, no question about it. I know Lewis Hamilton won his 7th world championship, but in terms of pushing the car to its absolute limits, Pierre Gasly was the number one for me. And I think if Sonoda can get somewhat the level of Gasly last year, then he'd do a fantastic job.
Do you
Alpha
think
Tower, yeah, go on.
do you think Pierre Gasly as a driver, one of those quiet drivers, is not rather getting the recognition that he that is needed? Not in so much winning the race, but like being that midfield driver, race in, race out, just doing it to the best of his ability. Do you think he's not being appreciated much, or what do you think?
Um, I think after last year, um, I think quite the opposite actually. I think he is getting quite a lot of praise, and it's good to see him stay on in the Red Bull Junior program for, well, not junior program, but the sort of junior team for at least another year, or maybe 2, because Perez now. which we'll come on to later. But I think I think Red Bull were slightly harsh, demote him. That was a couple of years ago now, but he's just done so well ever since he's been at AlphaTauri and before that Toro Rosso. I mean that race win at Monza is just so ridiculous and so lucky. I can't remember the it was like 150,000 to 1 to get that podium of Gasly, Sainz, and so that's another McLaren podium. I got Sainz on the podium in Monza. Pierre Gasly for me he's a superb driver, and I think if he has a season anywhere near as good as last year, then AlphaTauri will be pushing the likes of McLaren, of Racing Point, to reach that sort of that top of the midfield, if you like.
And he finished 10th last season with 75 points. To finish in the top 10, I'd say is a very good achievement. So now to Eastern Europe, to Poland, where we have the Alfa Romeo team. I wasn't sure what to make of the car. The car was all right, seeing the launch, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Could you help me out in like your description of how you felt about it?
Yeah, as you say, the car launched in Poland, which I thought was a bit odd, given that they've got an Italian driver in Giovinazzi, a Finnish driver in Kimi Raikkonen,
Yeah.
and I think it's a Swiss team with an Italian name.
But they launched it in Poland.
They launched it in Poland. It doesn't make much sense to me. Yeah, the Sauber team, obviously branded as Alfa Romeo, and again a very similar sort of design to last year, except what they've done is sort of they've inverted the colours slightly. So what was red last year is now white. So before you had red on sort of the engine cover, that's now white. And for me, it looks the best on the grid so far. I mean, it's fairly similar to last year, but I don't know. It just looks awesome. I can't really put my finger on why. I don't know about you, but for me, it's the best out of the 5 that have been launched so far.
Yeah, I seem to like it as well. The like describing the color shades as well, the red and the white, is very like vibrant and I mean, I'm gonna say this a lot today, saying vibrant and authentic for all the other teams. I mean, but there is one particular that will come up later on when we discuss it. So getting the rundown of the drivers in Antonio Giovinazzi and Kimi Raikkonen, starting with the Finn, Kimi Raikkonen, a veteran in his own right, finishing 16th in the championship with just 4 points. But really, we're talking about one of the most, what would you say, one of the really legendary drivers, would you say, of the past 10 plus years?
Yeah,
In
certainly
Raikkonen?
certainly since the new millennium,
Yeah.
he's one of the best drivers. Probably not all time. That probably goes to the likes of Hamilton, Schumacher,
Yeah.
Prost, Senna, Lauda, etc.
I stand corrected.
But yeah, I think he's he's what 41 now. He's getting on a bit.
Yeah.
And we saw Lewis Hamilton. I think he's mid-30s. Hamilton's only signed a 1-year contract, whereas Kimi's still going in his 40s. And who knows how long he'll be on that grid. He's such a good driver, and well, he's past his prime. I think I will say that he's not as good as he was, say,
in his
even
Ferrari days.
in his Ferrari days. Even his second stint at Ferrari, and he left in, was it 2017, 18? He left Ferrari. I can't
2018.
remember now. 2018, yeah. I think for a driver as good as him and as experienced as him is important for one of those, not necessarily back market teams, but one of those poorer teams in a way. Just to sort of have his knowledge and experience to improve the car and to get his feedback on something is just amazing and brilliant for Alfa Romeo Sauber, sort of improve their car, and hopefully we'll see some improvement from them this year and maybe even next year going into the new regulations.
Do you think Do you think Alfa Romeo can like push through push through the grid, maybe in that and challenge that midfield position of the likes of uh, McLaren and teams like those?
I think I don't think they're as strong as McLaren. Excuse me, or as Aston Martin. Um, they might be able to challenge the likes of Alpine and AlphaTauri, but I don't think they're one of those sort of top midfield teams like McLaren or Aston Martin, who were just so good last year. I mean, I don't like seeing this, but I think Alfa Romeo are perhaps the second weakest team on the grid, with the weakest being Williams. Um, but yeah, if they can push the likes of Aston Martin and McLaren to get into those sort of top 7, top 8 positions, then I think they'll be doing all right. I don't think we'll be seeing podiums from them anytime soon. I think
No,
they'll get on the
agreed.
podium this
Yeah.
year. But if they can finish a spot or two up um, in the constructors last year, then I think they'd be doing a good job.
Speaking on Antonio Giovinazzi, he's 24 years old. Um, he's been in F1 for a couple of years. Made his debut in Australia 2017, but he's been kind of like, I don't know, hiding a bit in Formula One. When I mean by hiding, he's like there's no real talk about him, you know. So I mean, I would like to see him, you know, try and stamp his authority for his team, maybe getting a few good performances. What do you think?
Yeah, as you said, I think he's one of those drivers that no one really talks about that much. He's sort of like the forgotten driver of the grid. 'Cause everyone's focusing on Kimi Raikkonen in Alfa Romeo. I think Giovinazzi was a bit disappointed not to go to Ferrari, but we've got Carlos Sainz going to Ferrari. Sainz is a way better driver than Giovinazzi, in my opinion. 3 points finishes last year, a ninth and 2/10. So what's that? 4 points if my maths is correct.
Yeah,
Um,
4 points.
which is funny enough, the same as Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen got 2 ninth places.
Hmm.
Um, but I think this season, hopefully, we can see him take some challenge to Raikkonen, maybe out qualify him a bit more, get couple more points finishes, and just try and make a name for himself, because no one is really talking about Giovinazzi. From what I've seen on social media and on websites, online, wherever, all the hype at Alfa Romeo is about Kimi Raikkonen. There's nothing for Giovinazzi. It's like that. Have you seen that the press conference meme where there's a guy on the left with just one mic in front of him, and then the women on the right with like 20 microphones? It's like that.
Yeah, and Giovinazzi is the one mic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No one wants to hear about him. All the attention is on Kimi Raikkonen.
totally agree with you. And so moving on to the fourth team, which personally, watching this launch, I thought, yeah, this is it. I really right, Red Bull Racing. Now, um, watching the launch, it was. I mean, when I watched the launch, I think I was like I was blown away by it. It was like the whole livery, like the matte blue material with the Red Bull logo and everything. It just felt so real, so like it felt so alive, and it was quite serious as well. Um, and the lineup is just amazing. Max Verstappen
Yep.
and Sergio Perez. Um, let me get your views on it.
I didn't actually watch the launch, but I was
All
obviously
right.
I've seen the car. And I think I think people are disappointed in the livery, but what more do people want? It's Red Bull is their own it's their own solid branding and their own livery. So it's not going to change much. Why would they change it? It shows their brand off perfectly on a Formula One car.
Certainly,
Or
they're certainly quiet, as in like they've been they're less busy. they haven't really been
Yeah,
advertising it much, working behind the scenes.
yeah. I think all the livery designer had to do was swap the Aston Martin tech out for Honda. But having said that, I think the livery it still looks good. Of course, it does. It's a Red Bull livery. Um, I was sort of hoping for maybe one of their sort of special testing liveries, like we saw a few years ago with the dark blue and the dark blue, light blue mix and some white in there. But
Excuse me.
obviously not. They're just going straight into the standard race livery, which again it hasn't changed much from last year. But why would they change it? That's the point. It's become more of an iconic livery. It's just here to stay, and
Yeah.
no changes really need to be made to it.
Hmm.
And I'm really looking forward to Red Bull this season. As you say, Verstappen and Perez, what a driver combination that is. I mean, Verstappen is,
Amazing.
I know.
I
Verstappen, yeah, go on, Sam.
sorry, yeah, I was just looking at it and just thinking we could really be in for something watching this season because Verstappen has quite a quite a resume. He's got 10 wins. Remembering his first one was in 2016, Spanish GP. He was just
On debut.
17 at the time, and he has the material to be successful, like really successful in F1. And Perez as well. Um, he's one of those consistent drivers, and he's like his performances year after year has earned him a big move. And look at that, you're racing for Red Bull now.
I think the sort of experience of Perez, it will be interesting to see how that combines with sort of the youthfulness and aggression of Verstappen. Because similar to Ricardo, Verstappen's quite an aggressive driver. And for me, he's one of the best drivers on the grid and certainly a future world champion in my eyes. Um, I think it's perhaps one of the strongest driver pairings on the grid because Perez has been around for what, over 10 years now. I can't
Yeah,
remember. But started off with Sauber, then had a year at McLaren, which didn't go too well, and then Force India Racing Point, and now Red Bull. And I think the last year or two, Perez has just shown that he is still a top quality driver and has been deserving of that sort of top three team for quite a while. And he's got that this year, and hopefully he can he can challenge Verstappen to podiums, maybe even a win or two.
mm,
That would be great to see for Perez. Um, what I am sort of worried about is that the second Red Bull seat for the last few years with Albon and with Gasly, it hasn't they haven't been that successful in the Red Bull. They've been successful for Toro Rosso and AlphaTauri,
yeah,
but when they've jumped up to the big team, the main team, Red Bull, they haven't performed. And I just hope that the mechanics and the engineers they don't set the car up too much for Verstappen, so that Perez is just left with no input whatsoever.
yeah,
Whether that's happened with Gasly and with Albon, we'll have to wait and see what happens with Perez. But if Perez can perform in the car, then it doesn't look too good for Gasly or Albon on their skills in a Red Bull.
yeah.
Hopefully we'll see Perez Verstappen, but I think they'll win some races.
Hmm.
Certainly Verstappen, I think will win a race. So hopefully Perez can do the same.
Yeah,
And it would just be, it'd be great to see them challenge Mercedes a little bit more than they did last year.
yeah. I agree with you on that. And I mean, the the Alpine launch will happen in a few minutes, so I guess we can still be talking. But if I had to ask you, well, I probably would have saved this question for the end of the pod. But if I had to ask you to pick one team to really go for this season and till the end, and one driver, well, yeah, who would it be?
Who am I rooting for?
Yeah.
Um, it's it's in a way it's hard to pick, but in a way it's not. The team for me would be McLaren. I've supported them for God knows how many years. and it's a it's a case of Ricardo or Norris. They're both brilliant drivers, brilliant people. I think I'd just be happy with if McLaren do well. I'd probably be slightly more happy if Norris does well over Ricardo, but
Mhm.
I think if either of those two well, I'll just be chuffed, to be honest.
Youth versus experience, I think it is. Yeah. Um, I think for me, Red Bull. I'd like to think that Red Bull can really stamp their authority this year, especially with the car that they have. Um, Verstappen for a number of years, he knows the trade, he knows the sport, and he has delivered in a number of races over the last few years. So I really think that he's an exciting driver. He has the potential to be successful and win a few championships. So I think I will be personally going for him this season, and I'd like to see him do well. And Sergio Perez. Uh, Moving on to Mercedes.
Yeah, the championship leaders, well, not leaders, but current holders of the championship.
Yeah,
They're not leading the championship yet. The season hasn't even started yet. But yeah, obviously launched their car this morning at time of recording, and I have to say, on first thoughts, I thought, "Whoa, that looks absolutely awesome." And then I looked at the rear of the car and thought, for me, I don't know about you, but for me, the sort of silver fin at the back with all the AMG stuff,
yeah,
for me, it just looks a bit out of place. I can't really put my finger on why. I think it would be better if it was if that silver was black, and then you had obviously the contrast of the red intake and
yeah.
the Ineos logo. I think that would have worked better, but I'm not a designer in any shape or form. It reminds me a bit of the Jaguar car, Formula E, sort of that light neon blue
Yeah,
on the black with a bit of white in there, and it just looks pretty good. For me, it's up there with Alfa Romeo for top livery of the season so far. Um, and I do like the fact that they've kept the black paint scheme um for the Black Lives Matter movement, but I think it just looks
I didn't
um
see that on the car. Maybe it was just me looking. I didn't see that bit.
I don't think they've got like Black Lives Matter on it, but obviously with Hamilton's involvement in uh, promoting Black Lives Matter and social equality and racial equality,
Mm,
to keep that black, that was what that was why they started this black livery, and I think to keep it also maintains that statement that Black
yeah.
Lives Matter. I think also purely from a livery perspective, it just looks good. I can't remember when the last black car, it might have been Minardi, quite a while ago
In
now. Um,
2001 or 2002? Yeah.
yeah, early 2000s. But going back further than that, you have the John Player Special Lotus, black and gold.
Oh, yes.
Um, it just looks good with the contrast of the blue and the red. Not so much the silver for me, but I just really like the look of it, and it and well, I say hopefully they can build on from last year. But I would like to a bit more competitive at the top of the championship.
Do you think they can be stopped this year? Uh, as in the form of other teams such as, well, only Red Bull? Like a real push?
Um, in all honesty, no, I don't think they can. I think ever since the hybrid era in 2014, they have just been absolutely unstoppable. No team's got close really. Maybe Vettel in 2017 or 18, but Ferrari have just been so poor last year, and I don't think they're going to be too much better this year. That no one can really properly challenge them for race wins for the championship. I think the real championship is sort of like after the top two, Mercedes, Red Bull. If Ferrari do better, then maybe they'll be third, fourth. But for me, the real championship is that battle for third and fourth place. We saw McLaren, and I think it was Racing Point last year,
Yeah.
have third place decided at the last race in Abu Dhabi. But for me, Mercedes they're just way too good for anyone to compete with them regularly. When you might get a Red Bull win here and there, maybe a Ferrari win if they have a better power unit than last year. But I think Mercedes are they're just way too good, way too good at the moment. And fingers crossed that the regulations coming next year in 2022 that it can bring more of a level playing field to the sport.
Mm. And yeah, about the level playing field. What's your view on it? As in, like, the Mercedes have been quite dominant over the number of years, and like there seems to be a sense of unfairness or one-sided advantage for the Mercedes, and the other teams are not getting a fairer shot. What's your view on that?
I think that Mercedes obviously have a lot of money, which is why they're able to develop the cars that they have since the hybrid era. I think they weren't they were more of a midfield team before 2014. So they just looked at the regulations and thought, right, how can we make this car the best we've ever made it? And they've done that, and hats off to them for creating cars that have just been above and beyond anything else that we've seen in the sport ever, really. They're the most dominant team, I think, ever in motorsport, certainly in Formula One. The last 7 drivers and constructors world championship. They're just unbeatable. And I think if there's been talk about a cost cap for this year to help sort of to bring in more of a level playing field. But I mean, Ferrari have more money than anyone else in Formula One, and they were dreadful last year. Dreadful compared to Ferrari seasons of yesterday. I think it would be nice to see perhaps some of the more top end midfield teams, if they can challenge the likes of Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari. If they can challenge them a lot
Excuse
more,
me.
then I think, sorry, if they can challenge those high end teams, those top 3 teams a bit more, then it can only be good for viewers, fans like ourselves, to watch. I also think a bit of a pause there, but I think if Williams, especially, if they can get back up to where they used to be, even say 5 years ago when they had Bottas and Felipe Massa, they were challenging for podiums now and then.
Yeah.
But the team has just gone so far downhill that no one really looks at them anymore. People just feel like, oh yeah, I feel a bit sorry for Williams. But if I just want Williams to do well, I do have a soft spot for Williams. A, because they're a British team.
Yeah.
B, they've got George Russell, who is a phenomenal driver, and sort of C, they're also based not too far from me in Oxfordshire. So they're a local team to me, and there are a few teams based with me based in Oxford. There are loads of teams around me. I just want Williams. I just want Williams to do well.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him last.
Yeah. For those wanting to like see the Williams launch, I think it's the 4th of March. So like in just the next 2 days, really.
Yeah, when when this episode is actually released, I think on Thursday, is it? I can't remember what time, but
And I think Haas as well.
yeah, are they Thursday as well on the 4th? I can't remember. I can't remember on that. I think on that graphic. I can't remember. All I've just been focusing on is like, right, Mercedes, Alpine today, and the 4 others beforehand.
Yeah.
Speaking of Alpine, their car launch that's just gone live on YouTube. Got that up on my other screen here, and it doesn't look live at the moment actually. Advert.
You hear it?
I'll bring you the out. Yeah, I can hear it. Oh, it's Lee McKenzie doing it. Anyway, speaking about Alpine, obviously rebranding from Renault,
Yeah.
and a change of drivers this year. Obviously kept Esteban Ocon, but Fernando Alonso returning to the sport after, was it, 2-3 year break?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him coming back into F1?
Well, Fernando Alonso, I mean, is a big name, and I think I'm not sure. I heard word that he wouldn't be at the launch. I think he's still recovering from his jaw accident. I think well, I don't know. Well, I would have loved to see him like push for, well, I'm not going to say push for a championship because I don't know if that's really, well, if he's past it yet. But what I'm saying is that Alonso would be there like for the experience as well, and like just an all-round driver. He's got an amazing record. It speaks for itself, doesn't it? So I mean, to have him back in F1 is absolutely great. But yeah, I don't know really what to say. Just really excited to have him back.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to him racing again because I think I think when he left F1 in 2017 or 2018, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think people just had a feeling of he'll return at some point. This is not a last goodbye to F1. I think I certainly had a feeling that he would come back. Well, I didn't know what what team that would be then, but back with Alpine, essentially Renault, the team he won his 2 world championships back in 05 and 06.
Yep,
Well, that's
back
right.
to back.
Yeah, back to back titles. I'm fairly certain he won't be doing anything like that this year
No.
with Alpine. But I think he's sort of going to take on that Kimi Raikkonen sort of role at Alfa Romeo. He's just got so much experience and is such a top quality driver that he can have some hand in sort of not necessarily rebuilding the team, but sort of helping them to just to make their car better overall. Similar with, as I said, similar with Kimi Raikkonen at Alfa Romeo. Just using that experience, using his knowledge to improve the cars, those sort of marginal gains that F1 has, chip away at those fractions of a second to make them quicker and quicker and quicker. And Esteban Ocon again, another fairly quiet driver, you would say, one that
Yeah.
doesn't get talked about too much. But I think he's not one of the best on the grid, but he's still a decent driver for me anyway. I think he's had he had a decent season last year. Also got that podium in Sakia.
Sakia, yeah,
Or was it the
finishing
Bahrain? Yeah.
second. Yep, he finished second in the GP. Yep.
Yeah, and I think if he can again continue from where he left off last year, then I think Alpine will definitely be pushing for maybe not podiums, but certainly challenging the likes of McLaren, Aston Martin, certainly AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo for those sort of top 5, top 6 positions, maybe. Certainly with the experience of Alonso and Ocon being a good driver, a solid good driver, consistent driver, I think. Then I think Alpine will be a solid midfield team. I just hope for their sake that they can pick it up a little bit from last year. If Alonso or Ocon can get, probably Ricciardo got 2 podiums Renault last year. Are we going to see something like that happen with Alpine this season? Who knows?
Yeah. So, well, as I said, Haas were launching their livery on the 4th of March, which is correct. Williams are launching a day later on the 5th, and then Ferrari launch a few days later, rather, the last team on the 10th of March. So we've still got 2-3 launches to go. Oh, and I forgot, tomorrow is Aston Martin.
Cool. There was a bit of sort of confusion about that, wasn't there? I thought it was being launched today at 12, and then no, it's being launched tomorrow. Is it 3 o'clock?
Getting mixed ones. One thinking it's launched today, launched tomorrow, but officially from Aston Martin, they will be launching on Wednesday, the 3rd of March at 3 o'clock, I think. Yeah, 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Obviously, when this podcast comes out, then we'll know what that looks like. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
But I think Aston Martin could have the potential to be the best livery on the grid. I think obviously it will be completely different to what we've seen before with Racing
Green.
Point with their pink liveries. It will be green, maybe a bit of from what we've seen of the sort of merchandise out and sort of the team kit.
Yeah.
It's been sort of that British racing green with a bit of sort of neon yellow in there. I think if they produce a car that has those colours, then I think that'll be very, very tough to beat. And it will also bring some variety to the grid because a lot of these cars have blue on them. Blue seems to be quite a predominant colour.
I was gonna speak on that just now. Just mentioning the grid as well. As you're looking at the cars and the car colors, there's not much variety, is there?
Yeah, no, I mean, the last few seasons, there's been quite a bit of variety with obviously Racing Point having their their bright pink car, McLaren switching to papaya orange, AlphaTauri was the sort of white and navy blue, bit of grey. Williams again, white and blue. Mercedes has got blue, Red Bull's got blue. I think the only team that doesn't have blue on it is Ferrari,
Yeah.
which is red. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, are you watching the Alpine
Yep.
stream on YouTube?
I'm
Yeah.
seeing it now.
Is that the car?
I think, wow. I mean,
That could very well be the car. If
yeah,
so, I quite like it. Again, but the thing again, there's a lot of blue on it. The top half of the car is pretty much blue.
yeah. And then on the rear side, just behind the intake, you've got the hint of red and whites, and then the Alpine spoiler at the back. So it's again, like you said with the grid, we're gonna be seeing a lot of blue. So, but overall, it looks
But
quite good.
overall, I have to say it does look quite good. It's probably not up there with the best liveries for me. I was expecting a little bit more black on it, to be
Yeah,
honest. I was expecting maybe a black nose or something, but on sort of blue on top of the nose, blue around the driver, and as you say, blue on the intake and the engine cover with the red and white stripes off on the fin of the engine cover almost. And you got a French flag on there as well with a red,
yeah,
white, and blue on the engine cover. It looks. Oh, it reminds me of. It reminds me a bit of the Williams Rockets livery that I don't think they raced with. Sort of red, the quite bold red, white, and blue. It reminds me of that a little bit. But I think Alpine, the blue almost looks quite metallic as well.
yeah,
Sort of a mixture of dark and light blue, depending on which way you look at it. And it's obviously very different from the yellow with Renault. Essentially, it's a complete rebrand of a team. Yeah, I do really like it, but the worrying thing for me is how much blue is there going to be
on
on
that
next year's
grid,
grid? Yeah,
yes. So much blue from AlphaTauri to the Red Bull. I mean, there's not going to be much variety.
yeah. We didn't really talk much about AlphaTauri's livery,
Sorry,
but did we talk much about AlphaTauri's livery?
not much. No.
We talked more about the drivers, but I think AlphaTauri they've sort of done a similar thing to Alfa Romeo. They're just sort of inverted the colours.
Yeah,
So where the white was last year, that's now replaced by navy blue. It's sort of blue on the top and then white on the bottom half of the car, and it does look quite. The only thing for me, it looks quite basic. It doesn't look as complicated as the Mercedes or the McLaren or the Red Bull.
mm,
It just looks very simple, two-toned, um, white and the navy, which as a color combo does work really well. But again, it's going to be so much blue on on the grid.
yeah,
As F1 fans, we picking up which team is which, but for a casual fan and looking on the graphics as well, they have that sort of stripe of the main color of the car.
yeah.
It's going to be tricky to determine. Oh, is that AlphaTauri? Is that Williams? Is that Alpine?
Is that Red Bull?
It's
Yeah,
it's just going to be confusing, I think.
yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I agree with everything that you've said. And looking at the cars, six launches so far done, including Alpine, and I've liked them so far. Some there's been some good ones and been some okay ones. I won't say bad because it wouldn't be nice. I'll say there's been some okay ones, but look, it's all about what happens on the track. And just briefly before we finish up, um, remember it's starting in Bahrain and not Australia. So and preseason testing is also next week as well. So um, there's a lot to come this month of March and in months ahead with the races.
Yeah, March is sort of traditionally the start of the F1 season. Testing, I think that's what, from the 10th, the 14th, or the 12th to the 14th.
12th to the
So
14th of March. So
yeah,
that'll be next.
so so a week and a half until testing. We'll also be covering that with a preview and sort of a report, I suppose, of the Bahrain Grand Prix at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Um, but so out of the liveries that have been launched so far, how would you rank them? What's your 1 to 6, or 6 to 1? Go from worst to best.
Right. Okay. So just to so just to run it so
Challenge
just
you
to
now.
run it so just to run it down, we have McLaren, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, Red Bull. Have I missed one?
No, there's still. Have you said Alfa Romeo?
Yep.
Yeah, Mercedes and Alpine.
Yep. So I think I won't give any reasons, but just my 6 down to 1. I think my at number 6 would be Alfa Romeo. Then
Interesting.
yeah. Um, I just thought I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it with them, but it's a nice car. Then at number 5 would be AlphaTauri with the blue. Number 4 would be, well, it might come as a surprise, I don't know, but I would actually put the uh well, I've almost forgotten now. I've almost
Red
forgotten.
Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, Alpine.
Right, I think Alpine just I think Alpine, if not for the blue, I would have preferred black. But if not for the blue, it would have snuck into the top 3. But I think it's gonna have to settle for 4th. But now for the top 3, I don't know. I don't know what you might think, but I'm actually putting Mercedes in third place. In third place, just because
Mhm.
although the car is good, the black, you've got the intake and the red in your brand on top. I thought the wing or the shape, the fin, sorry, the fin with the white, although it was good, maybe I don't know. Does it sit well with it?
Um, for me, I
Like you said.
think, yeah, for me, I think that silver would have worked if the rest of the car was silver. I don't think it works too well with the black. That's just my view.
Mm. And then number 2 would be McLaren with the orange. I thought when I saw it at the watching the launch online, I thought, yeah, they've done a pretty good job, and they seem to know their stuff. So they round it off for me in second place. So and then at number 1, which I thought was probably, well, my favorite of the what so far, was Red Bull. They've just kept it nice and simple. Although you could say, yes, it's the same as last season, they've kept it simple. They've only taken off the Aston Martin brand and replaced it with Honda, and it still looks good with the blue. Do you want to take
Yeah,
yours before we
I
round it
agree.
off?
Yeah. I think sixth place for me is probably AlphaTauri. Um, it's the one out of the 6 that I've looked at and gone, "Nah, I'm not too sure about that." I think it still looks quite good. I think it looks better from the side than front on or top down. I think in fifth it would probably. Oh, I don't know. Fifth is tough. I think fifth might have to go, and I don't like to say this, but McLaren. It's still a good livery. I think the gap between fifth and sixth is quite large compared to the other gaps in my rankings. I think McLaren, maybe with the Mercedes engines, I just feel like they could have done something a little bit different, maybe a bit of silver and red, maybe back to the old McLaren Mercedes days, but obviously completely different sponsors from now and then. I think fourth would probably be Alpine. Um, Again, a lot of blue. Well, not a lot of blue, but the top half of the car is blue. You got the red and the white, which works in the black sort of bottom half of the car. It looks quite good, but I was expecting something a little bit different from Alpine. And I don't know why, but it just doesn't stand out to me as a livery. Third place, probably Red Bull. Again, kept it simple, same as last year. It's just an iconic livery, and there's not much you can really change about a Red Bull livery, to be honest. It just is what it is. And it's still such a good livery that nothing needs to be changed. They don't need to mix up the color scheme, mix up the paint scheme. It just looks good. And with Verstappen and Perez, it'll look even better on hopefully on the top step of the podium. Second place, probably Mercedes. Again, first thought of that was that looks awesome. It looks better than last year. But then I saw the silver fin and thought, no, that doesn't really work for me personally. It would work if it was a silver car, but not with the majority of the car being black. And number one, sort of mentioned this earlier, but Alfa Romeo. For me, it just looks good. It looks sleek. I love the white and the red on there. I love how they've sort of inverted it from last year, and hopefully they'll get a bit more camera time as opposed to sort of the usual suspects of Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, etc. Hopefully we can see them a bit more on TV. Maybe Alfa Romeo number one.
Wow, thank you, Ed. Yes, and I believe to be wrapping up the show. Well, tune in. So this episode will be coming out on Thursday afternoon. So watch out for that. So, and for next week, I believe we'll be taking a rundown on the remaining liveries with Haas, Williams, Haas, sorry, Haas, Williams,
Ferrari,
Ferrari, and the last one, if
which is
Wes, you want to help
tomorrow.
me out,
Aston Martin.
Aston Martin. So, um, I am your host, Samuel Oni, and from Wes, my co-host. You have been watching the AfterBurners podcast. Thank you and goodbye.